Okay, so this is an instructional video on making a box, which may seem like a really simple task and can be a really simple task, but there are just a couple of things to bear in mind, such as the thickness of the material that you're making the box out of. So in this instance, I'm going to be making my box out of 18mm plywood. And my box's overall dimensions are going to be 700mm tall, 580mm deep, and 400mm wide. So, because this box is going to have an object on the top of it, quite a heavy object, this box kind of needs to be load bearing, and therefore the top is stacked on top of the sides instead of this top panel sitting in between these two side panels that could risk the roof of the box caving in. What that means is that this side panel or these two side panels and these two top panels have to bear in mind the thickness of the material that we're creating out of when we are measuring up the panels to cut. Cool. Because this side panel is sandwiched in between the top and the bottom panel, the overall height of this panel needs to have the thickness of this bottom panel and the thickness of this top panel taken out of its height. And because this is 18mm ply we're making out of, we take the overall height, which is 700, and we minus 18, and we minus 18 again, which gives us 664. So this box is going to have an open front as well, but it will have a back panel that will be screwed onto it to square everything up and to stop things falling through. That means that the depth of this side panel has to have the 18mm thickness of the back panel taken out of it. And so the overall depth is 580 minus the 18mm thickness of this back panel is 562. So moving on to the top and bottom panels, these top and bottom panels will be full width at 400mm, and that's because they're stacked on top of these side panels and not in between. However, the depth is the same as the depth of this side panel because we have to factor in the thickness of this 18mm panel of ply at the back. So the depth is going to be 562. The only panel that follows the exact, or the overall measurements rather, is this back panel, and that's because it's full width and full height and is going to be screwed from the back into these sheets.
Okay, so obviously I've just been a massive cheater and used a table saw, but you can do the same using a panel saw, which is one of these. It's an old looking one, but you know, just your average saw that you see everywhere is a panel saw. Okay, so I've already started making this cut here, but how I started it was by putting my left thumb, my left hand, or the side, or just the hand that you're not using the saw with, close to the cut that you're making here, and then with one knee up on the piece, put your saw blade to the left of the line that you're cutting, so that you're taking away material from the piece that you don't want instead of from the piece that you do want. And then you want to drag it back like this, and so you have an indentation for the saw to sit in, guiding it with your left thumb here. So you want to drag it back like this, and then start cutting through the piece of material like this, making sure always that your saw is on the left of your line here.
Okay, so here is my square that I cut by hand, and that it is perfectly good enough as well.
Okie dokie, so now you've got all your pieces cut, it's time to start sticking them together. So what I've done here is, this is my side panel, this is my top panel, and I've created a little platform that's roughly the same height as my side panel, so when I rest the top bit on the side bit, it's roughly square. So, to put these things together, we're going to use screws and glue. So this is just wood glue, or regular PVA, whatever really. And so we're going to run a bead of glue along the top surface here. Like that. And then we're going to line up carefully the edges of our piece of wood, so they're nice and flush down here. So once we think that's good, let that sit, and grab our drill. So we want to do drill a pilot hole through this top piece and down into here, and what that does is it basically stops these woods splitting when we're driving a screw through. Okay, so we'll start on this corner, making sure that we're nice and neat. And then using your same drill but with a screw bit this time, or a screwdriver. Just want to screw these screws in. Cool.
Okay, well, if you're anything like me, you probably would have made a couple of mistakes along the way, and you'll have little edges like this that just aren't quite flat to the surface, meaning that this back panel has come up too high, or has been cut too long. And so, to fix that, we want to use the orbital sander, or just some sandpaper if you don't have one. So I added a little shelf in there and some wheels, and now it is a portable little wheelie tool stand for my drill press. So yeah, that's kind of the thing that you can make using the method that we talked about to make an open fronted box. Good luck!